Hello and welcome to Sports Talk. My name is Jamie Koepp and I'll be the host for today's show. Our guest today is Dave Delsman. Boy, there's a lot of accolades that go with him, from a player to a person, and then obviously to an official currently. That's kind of where he's at now. Dels, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to come to Watertown.
How about a little personal background about yourself that you care to share with the viewers?
That'll be quick. Well, born and raised in Waukesha County, of course, and went to high school at the public school, which back then could have been called the University of Waukesha, like Arrowhead has been called.
Absolutely,
in the past.
right.
Catholic Memorial was the other school in our local town, but opted to go to Waukesha High School. My brother Mark also played on the same high school team with me, and ended up going out to San Diego and playing basketball on a scholarship at San Diego State University. I, of course, was fortunate enough to go on to Marquette University and earn a basketball scholarship and play for a trio of great coaches named McGuire, Raymonds, and Majerus.
Right, obviously well known. Take us from there. What happened after that, after high school year, after college years?
Had a great experience. As time flies, you realize that the college years went by so fast, and all of a sudden it's 20 years later sometimes. But
right.
Was thinking about trying to play overseas. My last year or two at Marquette, Hubie Brown, the great assistant coach at the Bucks under Larry Costello, had made some contacts for me, and I was thinking about doing that. But I also graduated from Marquette in 1975 with a degree in communications, and that was also the same year that the ABA and the NBA merged.
Okay.
And I was looking to get some tryouts, but then all of a sudden the job pool kind of shrunk a little bit.
Two became one.
Yes, exactly.
So to speak.
And I was thinking about taking a chance at going overseas to play basketball, and then I hadn't secured a job position after graduation, so I was looking and applying for jobs in my field, and I came home from working my summer job about 3 weeks after graduation, and my mom said, Coach McGuire's office left a message. You need to call them. He has an interview set up with you with one of the radio stations in Milwaukee. Coach found out that I hadn't gotten a job out of Marquette after I graduated, and within days got me a job at one of the radio stations in Milwaukee. So that was short-lived. I worked for one of the radio stations that was owned by the Wirtz family out of Chicago, and after having a successful sales position for about 18 months, the limousine came up from Chicago, and they fired the entire sales and management staff at the radio station. So that was the end of my broadcasting career, basically. Okay. Started with Milwaukee Sporting Goods and had a fairly long business career with them for a while. I've also have experience in insurance and retirement planning, longer time in my business life of that, and currently enjoying working in personal lines insurance for an exclusive niche marketing company that works exclusively with educators.
Right, that's a good brand. So when you grew up, Dels, what was the sport of choice, or was it the sport by season was your favorite sport?
Well, yeah, back then kids were encouraged to play different sports and things, and I was a football, basketball, baseball guy for the most part. You
and I both.
Yeah, I only played 1 year of football, and I decided to concentrate on basketball and baseball after my freshman year in high school. And then our conference at that time, back in the early 70s, was a suburban conference, and they, for some reason, dropped baseball my last 2 years of high school.
Oh, boy.
So that forced me, and I think I would have ended up doing it anyways, but I became a one-sport kid and focused on basketball my last several years in high school, and it obviously paid off. My parents always appreciated the fact that their two oldest sons were able to help pay for college.
School was paid for.
Yes.
That's an important piece. Was it always, growing up until you got to that year where you made some decisions and the decision for baseball was made for you, was it always hoops? Was that the one, or was it equally everything, or did you excel more in one, or did you love more one of them more than the other?
Good question. I really liked baseball, and I thought I would have pursued it had the conference not dropped the sport back then. And coincidentally, they only dropped it for 3 years, and the year after I graduated, they brought it back again. So missed out on possibly impressing some Major League Baseball scouts.
Right.
Who knows?
Back then, was there one Waukesha school?
Yes, it was. Yep. I graduated before Waukesha North and Waukesha West were built.
Okay. One of my first games as a sophomore in high school was when I was at Milwaukee Juneau. We played a non-conference game out in Waukesha, and I feel like it was at North. I don't remember, but it was like one of those rubberized floors, type thing.
The tartan floors.
Yeah, something was there, and I can remember the opening tip. They win the tip, pass it back to me. I come across. I take about 2 dribbles, and my toe hits the thing right around half court. And the first start of the year, and the ball rolls out of bounds. And I'll never forget that, for a long time. But I was also in the Suburban Conference when I played in the city. When I played in Milwaukee, we were with Racine Horlicks, and Case and Park. We were with Kenosha Bradford and Kenosha Tremper, and a few outlying things in this kind of on the south side type thing. It was kind of a mixed match conference as well, but it changed by the year as well. So think about all your networking. You talk about Al McGuire doing that for you. The world of sports makes the world so small. And you think of all your memories and your networking and things that happen. Just elaborate a little bit on it, how it's different because you played sports or because you went to Marquette or various things like that.
Well, exactly. It's amazing how the connections and the relationships that you bond over the course of time from being a high school athlete or a college athlete, and then you get into the business world and that type of thing. Somebody knows somebody that knows you, that knew your coach, whatever, and it becomes, like you said, a very small world, and it can benefit people. One of the things I've always tried to instill in my daughters, I have 3 beautiful daughters, by the way, and they all played basketball in high school, and 2 of them, they actually all played in college. My baby still plays in college at North Dakota Minot State on a basketball Division II scholarship.
Okay.
But getting back to the bonding and the connections and the networking that comes from sports itself, learning how to participate and get involved in teamwork at the young ages. I have yet to find anything that comes close to the advantages that sports can provide young people.
Oh, there's no comparison with it. And you think networking, as time goes on, it also sure shows you that you really can't afford to ever burn a bridge or screw somebody over, because that same thing can come to fruition as well in a negative way.
Yeah, it can come back to bite you sometimes. And I have several friends in the sports that either former teammates or people that I've come to meet over the years. I'm one of the most competitive people that people say they've ever met, and I've had a long tenured recreational career in softball, slow pitch softball and basketball, and now that I've been refereeing, I think I'm on my 34th year of WI officiating basketball. I burned a few bridges back when I was a competitive player in the rec leagues and that type of thing. And the funny thing, or the ironic thing, that I first encountered when I put on the striped shirt and decided to jump the fence and see what it was like being an official rather than berating an official, I got some strange looks from coaches and former players that I used to play against.
I bet so. We joke about going to the dark side, so to speak. But doing it is an incredible thing. We host a lot of, out here in Watertown, we host a grade school tournament that I was a part of as it developed from 8 teams to about 60 teams, both boys and girls. And most people are volunteers. Sometimes we have legends in Watertown like Steve Hoppy that's ref for 104 years, and we get a chance to golf occasionally with. But we also get a chance for high school kids to referee a youth game. And they realize how difficult it is on what to call, what not to call, because they see it when they're playing. They just get slapped on the wrist like, hey, it was a foul. But you're 25 feet away from the hoop, you don't have the ball and that happens, you're probably not calling it.
No.
You know, so for them, it's a great wake-up call for them to get an opportunity to do it, because it's difficult. And it's not a matter of seeing the fouls. It's not a matter of using instinct or something. It's a matter of determining what you're going to call to control the game.
Right, right. And speaking of that, the Lakeland Officials Association that I've been a member of now for 25 plus years, I think we were the first association in the state of Wisconsin to start programs and clinics to help mentor high school kids to get into basketball. We started originally with the basketball committee and things, and I don't know if our baseball and football committee members took it upon themselves to pursue that, but we've been doing the basketball mentoring and running clinics for would-be officials trying to come up through the high school ranks, and even novice college kids. We've put several former Waukesha County high school players, help them pay for some of their college because they get to the college level, and referee recreational basketball and things.
So here's an officiating question for you. When you think about the difficulty of the officials and what you do, what you don't, when you go from 2-man to 3-man of the freshman and JV to get to the varsity, years ago it was probably a 7 to 12 year window before you had that opportunity. You kind of earned your stripes, so to speak. Now, just like coaches, it happens in a couple years. There's not as much dues being paid, so there's a lot more inexperience there.
Right.
How does that change or affect the game as a whole, the context of those 36 minutes now for high school?
Well, it's changed a lot because with all the college camps and that type of thing, the young people, when they get into officiating, and my knowledge of the is strictly in the basketball venue, some of the young kids, former basketball players that come out of college and decide that they want to get involved in officiating, everybody, we're a I want it now society.
Yep.
So they go to 1 or 2 basketball camps and they think they're ready for the NBA, that type of thing. And you still have to pay your dues to a certain extent, but younger officials are in dire need, and not just in basketball, but
right.
We've seen articles and things from the WI bulletins where they're looking for younger people to get involved in all sports officiating. But I think there's still something to be said as far as paying your dues, that type of thing, and starting out at the youth levels and then working your way up. It doesn't, with very few exceptions, does it happen where someone starts officiating and 3 to 5 years later they're all of a sudden up in Madison doing a state championship game.
Right. That's not going to happen. Once again, our guest, Dave Delsman, comes from Waukesha down to Milwaukee, and I guess throughout the entire southeastern Wisconsin. When you think of the official aspect, sometimes players, good players, don't make the best coaches. Do you think it's important for an official to have played the game?
It sure helped me from personal experience, Jamie. When I first got into officiating, and by the way, I got into officiating because I was yelling at a couple of rec officials, and they happened to go out to the pub after the games with us.
I don't believe you would have ever done such a thing. When they say Dells is a youngster, they say sportsmanship.
Well, they told me that I was a great player, but I shouldn't try to ref and play at the same time. And if I do, I should actually put the striped shirt on and see what it's like. And that's how I actually got into officiating. And people like Billy Carollo in the Wisconsin histories and became an NFL official. He and I were the same age. We played high school basketball against each other, and he helped me get involved in WIA officiating. And as I said, my 34th year, and I've been fortunate enough to referee at the state tournament and state championship games in Madison. And I still think that it takes a while for you to get up there and you pay your dues and respect the elders and learn. Be a good listener in officiating, just like in life. If you shut up and listen once in a while, you learn something.
There's a lot of parallels to that. A lot of parallels. I look at the question with officiating, having played. I'm not one that ever worries about the mechanics or the placement or you know, of where you go during a timeout to the block or the top of the key for a short time or long. I didn't care about that stuff. I wanted someone that was going to slide to a certain spot so they had a better angle to see something, even if it was based on not exactly the correct positioning. You know, if you're on the bottom and you know how one person slides over, the other guy slides back to be the trailer, things like that. I didn't care about correct position. I wanted people in the spots where they could see those little idiosyncrasy things that happen.
Right.
Because then you're less apt to call the second thing. You'll see the first.
Yeah, well, you can know the rule book inside and out, but you still have to hustle and make an effort. People think it's a fairly easy job sometimes as an official, but you have to work, and especially now with the three-person mechanics coming into play in the last 10 or 12 years, you have to rely more on your partners. Two-man is very, very difficult to officiate, not just in boys basketball, but even girls basketball, because there's so much space to cover on the court, and the kids, it's become a more physical game. Kids think they can get away with more. They're going to test you. They're going to push the envelope, and you have to really rely on your partners, whether you're doing a two-person JV freshman game or whether you're at the varsity level and working with your partners in a three-person mechanics.
Those are good points. You know, we always had the discussion of whether you're better off with someone having a two-person crew, you and I are always partners, or having three guys that have never worked together. It doesn't automatically make them a better team because they're three people. But I do think there's a little caveat with that with a three-person crew, if you know what your responsibility is based on your position as the lead, the center, the trail, whatever the case is, that you can do a respectable job even if you're not used to working together.
Oh, obviously. More and more nowadays, you are not working with the same person, especially at the varsity level. Similar to college games where you usually have a different crew almost every game or every other game. So you have to, number one, be sociable and, you know, be able to get along with people. You're not always going to agree on calls out there on the court, but you've got to sell it. You've got to be professional and defer to your primary official, who's supposedly, if a call is being made in a specific area, defer to that primary official and give them the benefit of the doubt if there's a double whistle, for example. But it's tough. Like I said, two-person mechanics nowadays is extremely hard. One of the things I've been very appreciative of since three-person mechanics has come into play at the high school varsity level and at the college level was I'm no spring chicken anymore, so it's probably going to prolong my officiating career as long as I'm able to continue to be physical and be active and keep up with the kids. You know, I enjoy it. I don't foresee stopping anytime soon unless health reasons cause me to.
You know, because I look at something like the passion, the giving back to the game, the positive attributions. If someone's in it for just the money, they would probably load up on Saturday games the way you would youth football versus anything else, because the difference of $10 or $15 a game between the lower level freshman and JV and the varsity, money by itself, that separation isn't worth it.
Right, exactly. In addition to my collegiate and high school varsity background, I've been helping run a youth girls select basketball league for about 18 years now in Waukesha County with all the feeder programs, and all my daughters played in it and everything. And I've been scheduling officials for about 12 or 14 years, and I try not to give officials more than 3 or 4 games at a time maximum. We have tournaments, we have league games, but you're right, there are officials out there that just want to come and eat the food that's provided at the concession stand, and they'll spend all day there, but they're not doing the kids any benefit because, number one, they lose focus,
right?
And it's not to anybody's benefit because parents are hard enough to deal with nowadays without us giving them more reason to complain and that.
I didn't realize that aspect of things. That's
being
a
an
surprise
administrator.
to me.
I think you have a few stories, Jamie.
I bet
You could
there's
tell.
one or two. Think about yourself, Dells, in high school. Looking back, How different would your high school career have been if you didn't ever play sports?
Oh, wow.
And would you have graduated?
Well, I can tell you one thing. I would have had a job by the time I was 14. My father would have made sure that I had a job. In fact, I did have a job in addition to sports.
How different would your high school experience have been?
I can't put it into words. I mean, it would be, I would have trouble saying what my high school experience would have been. Had so many great relationships. You meet so many super people, not just people your own age as a student, but you meet adults that are coaches and mentors and things of that nature. And not to say that you can't do that in real life, but would have missed out on a lot.
Oh, you sure do. You think about all of us in the roles of coaches or in the roles of a student. Some of the people we respected the most and were the closest to, that understood us the most, were our coaches.
Exactly.
And that's who we probably would have ran through the wall for, without blinking an eyelash or asking any questions.
Yeah, I always tell my children how fortunate they've been. Even through tough times, we've had friends or all of us have our own personal experiences where we've had great teammates that may have had a major injury and had their careers cut short, something like that. And it makes you appreciate how sports can benefit not just you as an individual, but it keeps families together, you know, it keeps groups of people together, and the memories are, you know, invaluable.
Oh, they sure are. You know, it's kind of a question is that we don't have sports when you're younger, and then you get to adulthood. I think any one of us, when we're in positions to hire, if all things are equal and people have experience being part of a team or being a team member or being competitive, the nod or the nudge usually goes that direction for that person because they've persevered through adversity, they've lost, they've failed. There's a lot of those variables too that if you don't have those experiences, it's kind of unproven.
Exactly. Failure is inevitable. I mean, no one's successful 100% of the time, and sports is a great teacher of how to get back up off the ground or off your feet once we do fail. And most successes, especially in sports that I've known and friends that have had greater success at high levels, successes have come out of the failures and how fast or how well you bounce back from the failures.
You know, because that's exactly right. There's no replacement for the adversity and having the experience to kind of bounce back.
Makes you stronger.
It does. You know, a lot of these times people will say that, you know, through adversity it builds character and it does things like that. Some of that stuff I say poppycock. I think when there's adversity and there's junky things happen, it reveals your character.
Oh, exactly. Yes.
You know, there's no hiding behind something.
Right.
It's out in the open that way. You know, as I talked about the high school experience now, you know, in an adult standpoint from your 20s to, you know, to your current age now, think of how many walks of life and how many of your friendships or acquaintances are due directly or indirectly because of athletics in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's not a whole lot of experiences that I've encountered or relationships that I've nurtured and grown with that have come from outside of sports.
No, they all are in some, you know, they tend to be in some capacity. So you think about the times, you know, when you played on good teams, you know, people will have questions, and obviously remember this is a family show. When you talked about, you know, Rick Majerus and Hank Raymonds and, you know, obviously Al McGuire, you know, people will ask, what was it like to play for them? You know, and keep this G-rated, please.
Well, short answer is never a dull moment, okay? It was a life lesson every day, number one.
Was it easy?
No. Some days you thought it was easy, and then something would happen. Coach McGuire or Coach Majerus would snap you out of the fantasy that you couldn't believe how easy practice was going, and something would go wrong, and all of a sudden you realize it's work. This is work. And Coach McGuire was a great mentor. Coach Raymonds was a great teacher. Rick Majerus became a great mentor and a great teacher because of his relationship with them. The most important lesson that we were taught, Coach always let us know that maybe one or two of us would maybe go on to the next level and be able to earn a living at the sport of basketball. The rest of us were going to have to become workers in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And he always made known that education came first. And Coach Raymond's was as responsible, or more so, as far as making sure that we kept on pace to graduate. I can only think of one or two people in the 4 or 5 years that I was real close to Marquette as being a student athlete that may have not gotten an education, not gotten a degree. And I know most college coaches that want what's in their student athlete's best interests, make sure that education comes first and foremost.
Oh, no question. I think about my few interactions with Hank Raymond's. Early in my coaching career at Juneau, we went to Clyde Rusk's basement at Washington, and it was maybe Dick Bennett was at Wisconsin at the time, I believe. I don't know who was at Green Bay, maybe Kowalczyk at the time, and I feel like Bruce Pearl had just gotten hired at UWM, and obviously a lot of high school legends too, from Wynn to all the upper veteran type coaches. So here I am in the basement in my 20s, like a kid in a candy store. I don't think I said 7 words all night. I just listened all night and went from group to group listening. And I don't think there was a better venue or a better approach I could have taken that night. Because it didn't matter if it was Ray Rozek from Madison or Wynn or whomever else, Jim Jones, of course, any one of those guys in the basement. And it was, there's no alcohol. There was nothing like that. And it was just it was an incredible night from, all this, mainly city coaches and the college coaches.
Sure.
Of just listening, some storytelling, but boy, you could have goosebumps on your arms listening to most of the stories.
Yeah, too bad you weren't able to videotape that
I know,
session.
no kidding. Hey, that would have been something someday, and maybe it was good because things were open, because there were no phones or videos or little, whatever comes from those things, whatever today's world is now with all these different things. As we wrap the show up, Dels, your career, obviously you're the pride of Waukesha in a lot of ways, and you had a lot of trials and tribulations and excitement through the years of high school and at Marquette. And, we talk off the air about the craziness of going from the Warriors to the Golden Eagles and all the money left on the table for all the alumni and different things. Whether it was Marquette in the old gym, that was always the number 10 bus ride for me. Or if it was the Eagles Club, it was whatever the case was. That was me and my basketball as a little kid getting on that bus. I remember that vividly. You got to be proud of your career. You got to be proud of the person you become, and obviously through many things, both good and bad, the current maturity level. At some point in time, you got to look in that mirror and say, "Gosh, dog it, this was okay. This is pretty good."
Well, I feel very blessed. First and foremost, the thing that I want to, when I leave this earth, be considered a good parent, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job at that, being a good single parent. My daughters have all had good success from that standpoint. My family's in good health. That's the most important thing. But the relationships that I've been able to maintain over the years, Harry Oden, that was here a little bit earlier, we go back 35 years, Win Parkinson, I still see him. He comes to some of his grandkids' basketball games that I still help run the youth league at. So it's such a pleasure to run in to the old great coaches and mentors and people. It's just that where did the last 20 years go, Jamie? Time starts flying as we get a little older.
Sometimes you say that. I certainly cherish now the older coaches and the older crew that kind of took me under their wing. And my example is, before we wrap the show up, is when I met Jim Jones. I was playing in a tournament at Oconomowoc, coaching Juneau, and he was at Hamilton, and I got so angry that I threw my suit coat up in about the 10th row. Here I'm in my 20s, and he was older at the time, and he went up about 10 rows and got it out of the stands and put it behind my chair and kind of tapped me on the shoulder, and went in the locker room and got ready for his game.
There you go.
Now we've been a lifelong friend ever since. Now if I get stuck in the corner of I get stuck in a cornfield or in the ditch somewhere, and I call him, he zips out with his Hummer, and he'll be there in a split second and not ask any questions,
Right.
which is pretty exciting. Once again, our guest, Dave Delsman, Waukesha's own, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Marquette Warriors number 23. This concludes another edition of Sports Talk. Until next time, keep talking sports. Thanks for being here, Dels.
Thanks, Jamie. Pleasure.